Welcome to It's No Secret, a podcast for those who want their money questions answered.
Join us as we talk to real Kiwis and share truths about our own financial lives, because the truth is, there is no secret to achieving financial freedom.
Jace, welcome to It's No Secret. It's great to have you on the podcast for a Money Moments episode. Welcome, firstly.
Thank you. It's really lovely to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. Before we dive into the questions, I would love for you to please tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do at PocketSmith.
My name is Jason Leong. I'm the CEO and co-founder at PocketSmith. What do I do there?
Everything?
Everything from being the janitor to running the company, I suppose. We were a bootstrapped tiny startup when we were founded, and I've been lucky enough to see the company grow to where it's at today. So I guess one of the things I do is sit on podcasts with cool people and chat about money and our story. I'm really happy to be here to talk to you.
Thank you. Cool. So a great place to start, or that we like to start with a lot of our guests, is their relationship with money, because often that can be the root to everything else. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your money journey to date, from when you were a kid and how that has evolved over time.
For sure. So my mom was a math teacher and my dad was a banker. So naturally, I had zero interest in either math or banking.
It happens like that, doesn't it?
It does. I had no idea what my dad did for a living. My sister used to say that he would just like read the newspaper and go to the bathroom. But I did get a lot. I think I reflected on this when I looked at the question. And I did get a lot of, I guess, my latent beliefs and habits about money from my parents. So my mom taught me to be prudent with money. And my dad was a fantastic planner. Even before we were born, he was already saving for our university education. And I think that, and the way they were comfortable talking about money, and the fact that they planned so well, I was lucky enough to grow up in a household where we had financial security. And a lot of those principles have translated to the sort of person that I am today in the way that I think.
And so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, but is that what drove your desire to start PocketSmith?
Not really.
No? Okay, maybe we'll get to that then.
There's a bit of a backstory to that as well. I started PocketSmith because when I got my first mortgage, the world changes because suddenly there's this massive asset and a big chunk of your pay is coming out. And one of the things that I valued, living in New Zealand, I still had family overseas. And I just needed to understand when I could afford to go and see them again. That was a priority for me. And I realized that it was quite hard to actually get that information. I tell people that financial information, I mean, this is not a mystery to anyone, but we're so used to it that we put up with it. So the problem that we're looking to solve is that financial information is really hard to obtain and really hard to interpret. You need to have a certain set of skills to be able to download your transactions and put them into a spreadsheet. And when I think about my mom today, she's 75, and I was working with her a couple of months ago to try to figure out how much she'd been spending over the last 6 months. And it's hard. It's a hard grind. And this is what we believe is financial exclusion in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Everyone just puts up with it. And so we built PocketSmith to give people a sense of clarity and understanding about their money.
So is it challenging? Like, is that a problem because it's hard to consolidate it all? Or is it that you don't know where it is? Or I think about how you have your everyday banking and then you've got your investment platforms. Is it bringing it into one?
Yep. What we do is we connect to nearly every bank in the world and financial institution to bring in the necessary data. It could be transactions or balances, just so you can see all your stuff in one place. And that's the simplest definition of what we do. And from there, we give our users the option to explore their money and to really get the insights that they're looking for, because everyone's looking for something a little bit different. But at baseline, it's just hard. You may have an app that your bank gives you, and you get the insights from that app, but you can't see, I guess, all your transactions from all your different institutions unless you take that additional step to find it. And most people don't have that opportunity.
That's very true. I'm just thinking about how I go about my managing my money. It's like you log into your bank, you see your transactions, you put it into a spreadsheet, and you have to manually go through rather than being able to just grab that information easily or like have an API that pushes it through to PocketSmith.
And you're one of the few people who have the skills to do that work. Um, Getting the data into your spreadsheet is one, and then working the spreadsheet to get that information is another. And you can imagine, that puts you in the top 1 percentile of people who can actually figure this stuff out.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a really nice way to think about it as well. In terms of like, I think it's something that you can just take for granted quite easily when you have done it a few times and you know your way around the software.
It's certainly a privilege, right? So we've been educated, we've got jobs that let us learn a bit more about these tools. But for most people, I'd imagine they just put up with what they've got, and that's just not good enough.
Yeah, love it. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to pause on PocketSmith because we'll come back to it. But going back to, I guess, your money beliefs or habits. So you grew up in a household that was relatively financially secure. You had some good habits in place. How did that translate into, let's say, your career or how you personally grew your money throughout your life?
I mean, to be fair, I went into university pretty blind about my finances. And I think because my personal finances were never imperiled, I took that for granted. And so it wasn't until so I was quite lucky. I went through uni and then got a job quite quickly afterwards. And then by the time I was 29, I was the CEO of a software development company. And I had a stable income and really, I didn't feel like anything needed to change about the way I thought about money. But I have to say, even at that point, I didn't have a lot of clarity about my personal finances. What I had to do, though, at this company, it was a turnaround situation. And we were rapidly running out of money when I took over. And so this forecast of mine, I lived and died by it, and the company would have lived and died by it. So I had to bone up very quickly on understanding how to get financial control over this organization and its like 20 something jobs. And then when I turned 30, we left that company. So we turned it around, and then my co-founders and I decided to go and start this dream, which is PocketSmith. And what would come after was basically 3 years of some pretty tough times. So I gave up a salary, thinking that, okay, we'll start off and we can start to pay ourselves. But it wasn't until like 3 years on that we could start to afford to pay ourselves. And I was very lucky to have co-founders that believed in the dream. And so it was a grind. And that to me would have been the inflection point where I realized what it was like to actually be poor and to really struggle financially. It also helped me understand, I guess, what I prioritized in my life. So I was poor, but I wasn't unhappy. There's a lot to keep me going. I had great relationships. I was loved. I had good friends. I had a job that I loved. And it, I guess, helped align my priorities when it came to money. It's not the only thing that can make you happy, but it certainly can give you that security blanket. And so coming out of that phase, so it's actually founding PocketSmith that created this really humbling situation for me to help me better empathize with the people that we're trying to help today.
That's very cool. And so did you save up, I guess, ahead of that to be able to cover your financial situation throughout the 3 years?
Yeah, but it didn't, I mean, it didn't even last the first, I guess, 6 to 8 months.
Oh,
Like
wow.
we really stretched it out. And then as things got leaner, and I still had a house and a mortgage to pay. So between my co-founders and I, we would, we started earning, we got a contract quite early on, even before we launched at PocketSmith. And so that helped to cover the running costs of the business. But alongside that, we contracted to just pay the bills. And it was tough because we had to, we were working all the time and we were balancing the contractual obligations with trying to build a company and build revenue. And at the same time, actually building this thing called the Distiller, which was the first tech co-work space in New Zealand, in Dunedin at that time. So we were busy. There was a lot of energy, just not a lot of money.
Yeah, right. I'm just sitting here thinking, what is the belief that kept you going throughout all of it?
Ooh,
Or the drive, or, like, is there something that you were, this is the thing?
well, I think beyond everything is a belief in each other that we could pull it off. And I mentioned that I'm up here in Auckland to head to the Coromandel and hang out with my co-founder James. And absolutely could not have done this without him. And really, the sheer enjoyment of building something from the ground up, uh, that joy is something that's very hard to replicate. It's like it's making something that no one's ever made before, and that really was what kept us going. And just working together with someone on something we felt was really important. There's of course the sheer fear of failure.
Yeah.
So we cannot fail. We've put so much into this already. Um, yeah, it's funny reflecting on it because it feels like such a long time ago. But I believe that this, like everyone has this in them. It's like a fight or flight type instinct, and you just sort of roll your sleeves up and get the job done.
Yeah, because PocketSmith has been around for 16 years now, is that right? You
Yep.
celebrated 16 years this year,
Sweet 16.
right? Yeah, you're in your teenage years now.
Yeah, we're allowed to be temperamental and like bit gothy, like
Yeah.
the company in itself has sort of started to wear black eyeliner and ripped black clothes. So that's our phase right now.
That is so good. So, would you say that, or like, what are some wins? I mean, obviously, starting PocketSmith and then growing it maybe to where it is now, but in terms of your personal financial situation.
Yeah, I always go back to being able to walk into a supermarket and buy anything I want. That is a win that never gets old. I felt that when I got my first job, and I felt that again when we started to pay ourselves a decent salary many years ago. And I don't take that for granted today, even. And particularly, it's a privilege, right? Because we're going through a cost of living crisis. I still look at how many dollars per 100 grams the pistachios are.
Yeah.
But that level of security is something that I feel is a win, and it's something I'm grateful for every day.
I can relate to that a lot. I think the goal for me personally is to be able to do that at Faro or like a gourmet
Oh, right,
supermarket
yeah.
and just be like, yes, I'll have this, and not look at the price. Definitely not there yet. Still
We'll
counting my
always look at the
egg,
price, though,
my
like-
egg prices.
If you're wired like me, it just doesn't matter how much money you can spend. You'll still go, oh, is this bag of nuts worth $45 or not? Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Awesome. Well, so coming back to PocketSmith, you initially launched, well, you're a global company from inception. Can you
Yeah.
talk to me about, firstly, why you decided to start as global rather than local? Because a lot of New Zealand companies typically
Yeah.
go local and then they go overseas.
That's a good question. I think
Why not?
it's the internet. We are. I think to understand us, you've got to see that we are humanists first and business people second. And one of the reasons why we built the company, why we built the product, was that we were enamored of the idea that we could make something and let it help people all over the world. And this is especially important for us in a little city like Dunedin, where we thought, hey, this bit of inspiration could actually help change people's lives, and let's just put it out there. Now, why? I think the US was the first market to really accept us. And the reason for this, and we're thinking back to 2008.
GFC as well.
Yeah,
right?
and some of the
Yeah.
people listening to this podcast probably weren't even born at that point. But to put into context how old we are, the iPhone was released in 2007.
Was
So
it?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, the first iPhone. So that thing had no app store. It came with 2G, and I think it had Wi-Fi because Steve Jobs was like, just use the Wi-Fi. 2G is too slow. There were no apps, right? So the apps that came on your phone. So most people wouldn't actually start using smartphones until maybe 3 or 4 years later, if not later than that, right? So apps and the that ecosystem of products was all still very new. I actually have ranted on and forgot what question it
That's
was.
right. Why did you start from global markets first? But also, I'm curious on that
Oh, yes.
specifically. Did you launch as a desktop app, and like, how did
Yeah,
that work with
a
the app store?
web
A
app.
web app,
Yeah,
yeah.
a web app. So again, I guess the point I was trying to make was that people are still getting used to using apps, products online, right? And the US is kind of the spiritual home of PFM, personal financial management software. And it may sound like a new concept, but the granddaddy of personal finance apps is like uh, Quicken, I think. They made I think it might have launched in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. You can imagine old desktop computers with like disks. That's Quicken. Microsoft Money came probably in the 90s. So this sort of stuff has been around for a while. And we were one of the first apps to do this online with a web based product so anyone could use it anywhere. The reason why the Americas were excited about PocketSmith was because they were already using products like that, and America continues to be the place where a lot of these financial innovations hit the ground running. There's a lot of competition there. People are very interested and intrigued by their finances, and so it was much easier to understand what it was that we were building. Here in New Zealand,
Different story.
it was yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, open banking may happen between this year and next. So we are, quite a ways away from where some other countries are, but we're getting there very quickly. And so it really was about product market fit to begin with. It wasn't that we didn't choose to market the product in New Zealand. I think we we as a nation, culturally, we look at money as sort of a taboo subject, right? And that's one of the wonderful things about what you're doing with the podcast is to open up conversations about finance, and to hear people talk about their experiences, and to have people like me say it's actually okay to mess things up every once in a while or take a risk. So yeah, so that's why we put the product out there. And when I talk about being a humanist and the company being humanists and being invested in the human condition, we still care about that today. And what gets us out of bed is hearing from people from different parts of the world. It helps us feel connected to the global community, and that at the root of it all is what we're about.
Do you go and like meet your customers in the US ever? Like, or do you host events or anything like that?
Yeah, well, we don't quite have enough time
Yeah, no, fair enough. Small
to
team,
do the
yeah.
world tour. I
Yeah.
would love to. I think I keep saying to James, one day we're going to do the world tour of like meeting our users in bars and stuff. We have started. I was in New York about 3 weeks ago, and I had a chance to talk to some people who have used PocketSmith as well as our competitors. And when we were in Sydney a couple of months ago, we held a user meetup there as well. And the insights, like it, if that was my job, just traveling around and talking to people about a product, I'd be so happy.
That's awesome.
Mm.
Maybe you should hire yourself to do that, to fill that role. Yeah. I love that. So from the US, you then expanded outwards. And from what I read, so in terms of your spread, you are now in 190 countries, and
Yeah.
the US is still your largest market, or Australia?
No, not anymore. It is. Yeah. Australia accounts for about 50% of our customers, and the US is now only 10%. And yeah, everyone else is spread everywhere else. So we're definitely one of those organic growth stories. And what we're learning to do is now focus on target markets and grow them. So Australia is our current focus, and we're currently looking at, I guess, quote unquote, re-entering the US. And we've got to do that very carefully because um, you know, there are so many competitors, the market is saturated, and we're so far away, and we don't even know if the conversations we're having with our customers are the ones that they understand.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so, how did you decide that Australia was the market to focus on?
There are a couple of things. For one, it really is an ideal market for Kiwi companies to go into first. There was a time when many tech companies thought, let's just go straight to the States. Um, and there, for a range of reasons, it's a very tough market to crack because it's like 50 countries in one. People are super diverse, and there are these nuances around their culture that if you don't understand, it's very hard to get traction with your product. all our competitors there are super well funded. And so, if you want to if you want to put a bit of money into marketing and advertising, these guys will just turn the spigot a little bit, and a bunch of money flows out, and they wipe you out.
Yeah,
So
right.
we've got to do the number eight wire thing and be smart about getting to the US. Over in Australia, culturally, we're more similar. However, we have found that Australians are more comfortable talking about money. And it's a nice step up. So we're going from like 5 million people to 25 million people. The US is 330 million people. It's easy to get swamped and lost in there. And it's easier to travel to Australia as well. So that's one. The interest rate rises of a couple of years ago really corrected the market for us. So one of the challenges we've seen in the personal finance software space is that we've had many well-funded competitors that haven't had a revenue model. So, or they've been losing money. So they're technically what they call zombie companies. And they might be there as a loss leader for a parent company, for example, just to get people onto the software and then maybe mine their data or advertise to them. And that's not our business model. We charge for our product via subscription. So the challenge there is that when we're going up against competitors that are offering their product for free, the market goes, well, why should I pay for your product, right? And when the fact is, generally, if you want to keep something sustainable, you pay for it somehow. When interest rates went up, a bunch of our competitors in Australia and the world closed. And so that was validating for us. Well, for most companies are like, oh, my competitors are going under.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are we still in business? What it did though was to basically educate the market that if you want a good product, you want to support it, you should pay for it. And we charge a reasonable fee for a good product. And so there's been a bit of a vacuum in Australia. Uh, there have been tons of people who've had their money management tools taken away from them because they've closed, and we've been able to step in. So that's actually given us the confidence to double down on Australia.
Yeah, right. Interesting. And so I guess each market also has their own sort of set of financial governing rules or systems. In New Zealand, we have the FMA that governs our financial services industry. How have you managed, I guess, the different financial landscapes?
Yeah, well, we don't give financial advice. So we're a software that helps people analyze their money. So that means we don't need to get a license for providing advice, and we don't want to be in that space either. Where we need to adapt to different countries' systems, I guess, would be in what we call bank feeds, which is our ability to connect to banks and get data for our users. And that, I mean, we think of it sort of as plumbing the pipes for the data. And that because there is no one standard for this plumbing, it's quite a complicated job to keep these pipes running reliably and consistently. And so one of the challenges has been in getting reliable data from some places. So an example would be in Canada, where there's banking reform going on right now. And there are issues with the way that these things have been implemented that prevent us from getting reliable data feeds from Canadian banks. So we had to make the hard call to move out of Canada, even though that was a growing market for us, because we just couldn't keep disappointing our customers over there. This will likely change at the end of 2025, but this is just one example of how if we can't get data, then it's not a really great product for our customers to use.
So, on the note of customers, I read somewhere a while back that you were focused on growing PocketSmith sustainably over time rather than scaling quickly. And that's something that you've kind of touched on already. And with relation to customers, so you noted that it resulted in you're doing this because it resulted in better outcome for customers. Can you share a little bit more on your perspective there?
Yeah. Well, it begins building a great company begins with culture and making it a great place to work, right? And when we love what we do, we love making good things for our customers. And it really is as simple as that. I think that when a company scales too quickly, there's the risk of it breaking culture. And sometimes that just has to happen. And it's not a right decision or a wrong one, it's a choice. And for us, because we work in an environment where, again, going right back to us being humanists, we really care about customer outcomes, and we know that at the end of each email, at the end of each conversation, is a human being with their concerns, their passions, their ambitions, and we have a responsibility to help them when they reach out to us. And so it begins with the team, and we've added team members one by one from when we were three people, and we've learned along the way that it is so important to reflect upon what works culturally as we're building a quite a unique structure, right? So we are a hybrid remote team. We are, I'm very proud to say that we are 60% women, 40% men, which is, I think, a little bit unusual for a tech company. We are also, some of us are digital nomads. We've got a team member in Malaysia, one in Tokyo, and one in the UK right now. And in order for us to build out a workplace that encourages this, that supports it, we need to build it brick by brick. And so it starts with layering on bits of the culture and seeing what works, uh, meditating on that together, really, sharing it with the rest of the team and going, okay, did this work? Yeah, okay, great. Let's do more of this. If something didn't work, we'll do less of that. And you can try to do that really quickly, but when we've actually got jobs to do as well, and we don't have a single person who is in charge of HR, for example, all of us in our leadership team, we take responsibility for the well-being of our team members.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we build in a culture of caring and understanding as to what our mission is, what our purpose is, and what it means to be empathetic and to embrace individuality, this means that as we grow, it gets easier to bring aboard like minded people. And it means that people are living our values rather than being told what to do. And that really, to my mind, is how the customer ultimately benefits from it. Um, and if we think about like what this looks like to an end user, right? So somebody emails in from, say, Ohio, and they've got a very, so our key customer is the home CFO. And home CFOs are usually the unsung heroes of the household. Uh, it falls down to them to manage the household finances because they've either stuck their hands up or, I mean, nobody really wants to be that unless they're, a little bit geeky, which is like, then absolutely. And they're there looking at PocketSmith and they're trying to get their finances right. And they're probably feeling a sense of anxiety and they need to get this done and they want to understand where they're at. So they'll write into our team. And this may be a complicated question because everyone's finances are really different, right? And that's one of the great things about PocketSmith is that you can organize your money any which way you like. So a question comes in, it's quite complex. So what happens is our support team can collaborate on it, all with the customer in mind. So we're not looking to close the conversation as quickly as possible. They're looking to understand what this person's going through and then literally work together to find the best possible solution for this person and then craft it in a way that they can understand in our voice. If it's even trickier, they might reach out to marketing or to engineering who may explain the feature in a slightly different way or provide a bit more context. But everyone is on the same side. Everyone has the goal, has the customer's best outcomes in mind. And that's not something you can easily just put down in a manual.
Yeah.
You really have to
And a
believe
PDF,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. and to get to that point, you have to bake it into the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does this, I have two questions on this. Firstly, where do you then stand on the notion that the customer is not always right?
My dad used to say, the customer isn't always right, but the right customer is always right. And I think, when I reflect on that, maybe he's being a little bit cynical about like the value of the customer to the bank. I guess it's contextual. It really depends on the context. It is a bit myopic to say that the customer is always right because they may have a wrong impression of what the product is meant to do or a feature is meant to do, in which case it defeats the purpose of saying, yep, you know, just go ahead and keep doing this the wrong way.
Yeah.
But I think a healthy way of looking at it is to say, be on the right side of the customer and to really understand what it is they're trying to achieve and then offering them a solution, if that's an answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you. And so then in terms of customer outcomes, in terms of how you build the product, how do you see, I guess, the team's influence in that way?
Well, are we talking about like specific features?
Or just like, I guess, I think I really resonated with what you said before around ensuring that the customer is always at the center and that they're, you know, what they're going through and their pain points and like them, you know, coming to you in the moment of stress saying, help me or whatever. But I think it's very easy for companies to lose sight of that. And I think, and particularly when you then launch new products or you build the product out, I guess how have you seen that successfully like translate into how you then develop the product over time?
I think that this probably loops back to that scalability question as well. We haven't taken funding because we love to have a degree of, well, a significant degree of control over our decisions. We know that when you take somebody else's money, the clock is ticking for you to generate a return, and that will have an influence on the kinds of decisions that you make. And the customer probably ends up being not the priority, where revenues, profits, do, and that's where I guess companies lose sight of their purpose. Again, it's not a right or a wrong thing because stakeholders deserve their returns, obviously, as you know. Um, but so I guess step one is we have the space to think about our priorities, and we understand those priorities from, I guess, our staff who are talking to customers. It's a mix as well of a bit of inspiration. So we can't just be a sort of product that responds to customer needs because if you build out everything that every customer asks for, you end up with something that's not really for anyone.
Or even like the loudest ones as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's a little bit of magic that happens. We have systems in place, like customer pain points that are prioritized. We definitely want to optimize our current features so that we're saving people time, we're making things clearer for them. At the same time, we're giving ourselves a bit of room to think about what could be next, and that is, that's something that requires inspiration, a lot of sleepless nights and banging heads on the wall, sort of a thing. But when it all comes together, and I was telling someone yesterday, actually, it's a bit like writing a song. Like when you've got an idea that this could be a real banger, but you just don't quite know, and you work on it, and when you ship it, either becomes an indie hit or it becomes a pop song. And so we're always trying to strive towards getting that getting that pop song, like having something really resonate with people, something that they love, and something that they think this is just going to make my life so much better.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. And so coming back to the scaling piece that you mentioned, I think that is, I was actually going to ask you about were you self-funded or had you taken investment? Because I can see how the trade-off then becomes, revenue versus customer, or I guess what comes with that.
Yes.
But in terms of, I guess, expanding through those markets and then growing over the 16 years, have you, I guess, what structures and systems have you put in place to ensure that your team is connected and productive and, maybe you're juggling like different time zones, those kinds of things?
We actually work together to, I guess, build so we learned quite quickly that being in a hybrid remote situation means that we need to be remote first. So one example would be that years ago, when we would have some people in our Dunedin office and one or two people phoning in, you know, the people in the office would clearly trump the people over the wire, right? Because they're talking it amongst themselves. Now that may seem quite minor, but it leads to a sense of exclusion for the people not in the room. And so we now, if one person is remote, everybody's remote in a sense that even if you're sitting in a room, we all have our laptops open and we all look at the camera. We don't look at each other. And that was a bit odd to begin with because you're sitting next to somebody and you sort of
You just want to turn, yeah.
you just want to. But it's kind of like it's second nature to us now. That's one. We make it a point to work asynchronously where we can as well. And what this means is that in a high speed environment like Slack or Teams, so we use Slack, workplace chat can be a boon, but it's also quite a, like it can really pull your attention away from the work that you're doing. And so we've made it quite clear to all the team that, uh, Slack is an asynchronous channel. So you can use an emoji to say, I've seen this message, I will look back to it at some point, but I'm not under pressure to respond to you right here and now. And all of that leads to a sense of understanding of how to communicate with each other. So when we bring people on board into PocketSmith, we have to ensure that they can communicate excellently over chat, and there are nuances to how you to express yourself. Things like an emoji or a smiley face like that carries a lot of weight. Whether or not you have a full stop or not at the end of a sentence.
Exclamation mark. Yeah. Are you shouting or whispering? Yeah.
Exactly, right? Are you being terse with me or are you just in a hurry? These little nuances are what makes up the fabric of how we express ourselves to each other and how we communicate. We've also done like a course called Dots, which basically all of us go through a quiz that then puts us into a category of the type of a color. Actually, I think that's purple, yellow, blue, and red. And it's just about how you communicate to people. So, like red dots are more direct. Blue dots can wear our hearts on our sleeves. And so, if you didn't know what color that person was, you might find it offensive. But if you did understand that this is your method of communication, then you're more inclined to open yourself up to receive that in the way that it's given, and so on and so forth. So, and not everyone's just a single color. You're primarily one leading up to another. So you might be a blue, yellow, purple, red, or you might be a red, yellow. And like yellow, for example, is someone who's got an attention to detail. And so this is a shortcut for us to even poke fun at each other. So like a design might come out and like, the something's maybe 3 pixels out of place, and somebody's eye twitches and you go, yeah, she's the yellow dot. I mean,
I can so relate to that.
so these are all tools, right? So because we're all human, and when we've got the tyranny of distance, so we're all so far apart from each other, it is so important for us to be able to have some ground rules for communications that then become second nature. On top of that, we are trying things all the time. So there's a sort of a Slack quiz that goes on that we sort of pulls different people from different teams into groups to just compete against each other online twice a week. We've got this thing called Pocky Pals where one of our team picks 2 people and they just end up having a 30-minute call about a preset topic. And I love that because I get a chance to catch up with people that I don't normally talk to. And then once a year, we bring everyone to Dunedin. So this is the 4th of November. The whole team's coming in for a week of just hanging out at what we call PocketCon. And at PocketCon, eat, drink, and sort of eat what is that?
Just eat and drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna look at this.
Yeah, you're fine. You can
eat,
take it.
eat, drink, and be well, or make joy, or oh gosh, here's the CEO who can't remember one of his favorite values. Anyway, eating is like we love food. We're obsessed with food at PocketSmith. And so there's going to be a lot of food. But a part of PocketCon that we all enjoy are the talks. So you can pick a 5, 10, 15-minute slot to talk about anything that you want to. And generally, it's not about work. We've learned that our team has expert bakers. We've got artists. We've learned how to make kombucha. Lots of everyone's really got amazing interests and they're super talented. And so it's a chance for us to get together to actually see the people we work with and learn a bit more about what they're passionate about. And so that's part of the fun of getting together once a year.
That's very cool. Do you do like a hackathon or anything like that? Or is it like not so work focused? It's more.
Yeah, this is probably not as much work focused. We're actually trying to bring a little bit more work conversations into PocketCon. However, because we work all the time anyway, this one chance to get together, we feel that it's so much more important to actually bond as people. So that's what we do.
Yeah, fair. I had no idea that you had team members, and you said Japan, and or are they just traveling at the moment?
So let's see. Nicole's probably going to be there for about. I don't want to accidentally dox people.
Oh,
and
yeah.
say, yeah, that's where she is. Go get it. I think she's in Japan for 3 months. And we've got family, like we've got team members visiting family. So June's in Malaysia, and then maybe Singapore and Dubai for a few months. And Holly moved to the UK about a year ago, I think, just over a year ago.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, and one of the cool things is that, if you doesn't really matter where you are, you can still work with us. Yeah, time zones can be tough. These last couple of years, I've had to travel quite a bit and spend quite a bit of time with my mom. But I've really liked to I've appreciated the flexibility to be able to work from anywhere.
For sure. And it must help that you do have all of those systems and connection points as well to ensure that you stay connected.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can see how the asynchronicity, the communication skills, all of that comes into play to give us the flexibility to be who we want to be and where we want to be.
It sounds like you, as a leadership team and maybe as a business, you invest a lot of time also to ensuring that like this continues and improves in your communication as a team and you're all bonding and stuff. How do you balance that with like the actual day to day? Because I think it can be so easy to let that fall off,
Yeah, I think it's not hard because we all really care about the people we work with. And again, it comes down to that cultural layering. We were, we've picked the executive team very carefully, and I guess it just works. It feels great. If we were to hire another person into the leadership team, we'd go through that whole process again of really vetting them to see if they have those values in alignment with us. So for us, it's sometimes an exco meeting could go for an hour just with us talking about how to better the situation for a team member, for example.
No, that's cool. That's very cool. That's very cool. And I mean, I only know Dora in the leadership team, and she's awesome. So
Absolutely, she's a rock star.
yeah, she is. Cool. So last question to round out is, this year's been a big year for PocketSmith in the sense that you announced in June that PocketSmith was selected to be the only New Zealand company to join 8 other companies for MasterCard's Global Start Path Open Banking Embedded Finance Program.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Could you please share a little bit about what this means for PocketSmith and your customers, but also for those who don't know what open banking is, just a really high level, what is it?
Yeah, let's start with the open banking thing. So, I mean, open banking is a few things, but what I'd love your listeners to know is that open banking is about realizing the value of your financial data. It covers a few areas, but one goal is for consumers to be able to securely share their financial data in order to get more insights, to shop for better deals, to easily move banks. And the core idea here is that of consent. So you will be able to give consent for your data to be shared with a third party or product that you would like. So in the UK and in Australia, where open banking is in flight, it's pretty much like, if you're using Google or Facebook login, because you don't want to have to remember a new password to sign up to a new service. Open banking is a bit like that, where you can say, I'm banking with Westpac, and I would like to share my data with PocketSmith so that I can get a better idea as to where my money is going. You can do that. So it's a sanctioned, secure way of using your financial data. It's very exciting because we believe that this opens the door to financial inclusivity. And that goes all the way back to what we were talking about at the start. Getting access to that data for people should no longer be having to download files and use spreadsheets and whatnot. You can use PocketSmith. You can use a range of any other tools. And the whole point is to give you the option. The other thing about open banking is that it's meant to give consumers more choice. So with this data, you get to put it to use. So when you give consent for your data to be used by a third party, it opens up the whole ecosystem of innovative tools. Smart people are going to say, okay, I'm going to use this data to try to find you a better deal on your insurance, for example, or to try to find your subscriptions, or, things that we haven't even thought about. There are many products out there where open banking exists that do stuff like that. The main thing is that the whole point is to recognize that this data belongs to you, and it should be easy for you to take action on it. So that is one slice of open banking, and that's one of the things we're very excited about. Where MasterCard comes into play. So MasterCard they're making $1 billion bet. Aside from payments, which is what we all know them for, they believe that the future of finance lies in data. And so beyond payments, they're partnering with companies like us. And so our partnership with MasterCard is them saying, hey, we love what you're doing today. We want to see what we can do together tomorrow. And that is a huge validation, I guess, for the work that we're doing. And what they posit, and this is not a mystery to anyone, like technology is moving at such an incredible pace, and no one company can keep up with the rapid pace of innovation. And so what they're doing is they're partnering. And so for them, they get to actually lean in to seeing what we know as one of the companies with the deepest expertise in personal finance. And we get to work with MasterCard's technologies. And they've got a whole bunch of different things that we can do around payments, identity, open banking, and they can open doors for us as well. So yeah, all I can say is just watch this space. It's very exciting.
Love it. And so what could this mean, I guess, for your customers in terms of potential there?
What it means is that we're going to be a better product than we could have ever hoped to be with the help of a company like MasterCard. And they have global reach. And so I think we found the ideal partner to look at the next phase of our growth with.
Nice. Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jay, so much for sharing all your wonderful insights.
Thanks for having me on. It's been so much fun talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. I feel like I learned a lot about you and about PocketSmith. So yeah, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
And we welcome you back in Dunedin, as soon as you can make it down there.
Don't forget to hit like and subscribe wherever you're tuning in, whether that's on video, on YouTube, or listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you have questions, feel free to get in touch at It's No Secret on Instagram, send us episode requests, feedback, and more. And actually, lastly, Jace, where can we find PocketSmith? Do we just Google PocketSmith?
Yep, you can Google PocketSmith. We're on Instagram or LinkedIn, or just go to pocketsmith.com.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next week.